education has to expand. If we're going to raise the next generation of these young minds, these learners, it has to expand beyond the curriculum, beyond the content to connection, right? They're learning not just from what you say and do, they're learning from your embodiment, the language that's unspoken, your coherence, dysregulation, walking, your nervous system. They're learning from that space. There's a reason why I've had so many youth, and this is a great example of, Johnny in classroom A is an angel, classroom B is an angel, classroom C every day, that's turn up time. There's always some conflict, getting sent to the office. Why is it happening at that time? Oh, this educator is dysregulated. And we know through Resma's work, when I'm dysregulated, I can trigger another nervous system. And that is important. This education that we're talking about has to expand.
Welcome to Purposeful Empathy, a show that's dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand that the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. This season is devoted to the power of empathy in education. Meet 12 visionary leaders from the Transformative Educational Leadership Fellowship Program and learn how they are bringing meaningful change to their schools. You won't want to miss a single episode, so hit the subscribe button now. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the show. Welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today, I'm joined by Mychal Mills, a courageous leader from New Jersey who has dedicated his life to building beloved community and creating spaces of healing and growth. In 2014, he co-founded K.Y.D.S, Conscious Youth Development and Service, a nonprofit that's transformed the lives of tens of thousands of youth, educators, and families through mindfulness, trauma healing, and restorative practices in over 200 schools across New Jersey. Mychal also serves as a national facilitator with the Transformative Educational Leadership Initiative, supporting the inner development of education leaders across the United States. With an MBA from Monmouth University and a background that includes leadership roles at Feeding America Food Banks and the Boys and Girls Club, he brings both strategic vision and deep compassion to everything he does. He's also a sound healing facilitator, spoken word poet, and author, a beautiful blend of heart and head. This season, I'm exploring the power of empathy in education, and I've invited Mychal to participate in this special series because that's precisely what he practices and exemplifies. Welcome to the show, Mychal.
It's a pleasure and a blessing to be here. Thank you. Thank you for those beautiful words. I know I sent them to you, but it's always funny hearing them back to yourself. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it's so rich, your background, and you're just getting started. So I wonder, besides the impressive bio, and we're going to unpack all of the things that make up who you are, I wonder if there's anything you might want to put up front about you that might add a little extra color than what I've just shared.
Well, extra color, I do appreciate that phrase. And I think I love love. And I think, and I'll just say this beyond the bio, and I have yet to update it in this way. I'm a human. I'm a soul. I'm a spiritual being. But what's most important title right now in my life is I'm a fiance. Excited to build a life with my partner, my beloved, and we are both love. And I say that very intentionally because love is what brought us together. Not the typical love, right, that we know about, but it's the love that came from grief and remaining open to love's expression after grief and during grief that brought us together and how open we are in that space. I really enjoy loving conversations, loving embrace, and with that comes conflict naturally, as you know, Anita. Conflict is a part of it. It's the fuel that brings love back together and continues to build on love's expansion. So, love is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I try to embody, practice every day. So when it awakens in me, I'm able to bring it to my community and help others awaken to love within themselves. But love for me is something I want to share because, I am love. We are love. We are loving together.
I love that. And I just learned the news of your recent engagement, and maybe sometime down the line you'll go back and listen to this and you'll be expecting, and sometime down the line you'll be expecting again. Who knows? Anyways, I won't
Hey, put it out there.
predict. Lots of Since you mentioned love, let me ask about beloved community because I know that's important to you. Love being in the word beloved. How would you go about defining beloved community? What is that?
Oh yeah. Thank you for that question because recently, I had a conversation, a transformative conversation, whom I think you were able to listen to. And one of the Tell Fellows messaged me after that conversation and said, the love community has a nice guy wardrobe. It's kind of like perceived that this utopian, like beautiful place, everything is in perfect harmony. But I don't know beloved community as that. I know beloved community as the muck, the yuck that we go through, but we continuously come back together. So some of the core components, as I think about beloved community, is conflict and normalizing conflict as a natural part of life, and conflict that brings us into deeper relationship with ourselves and each other. So conflict is a part of beloved community. Radical forgiveness is a part of beloved community. Healing is a part of beloved community. And I do want to say healing, not in the space of deficit, what has been lost, but healing could be me just, hey, today I need some joy. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to, healing to me is not just deficit, but is abundant. And it's a part of who we are. It's our reconciliation to wholeness. Um, and last thing I will say about beloved community is reconciliation is a core component of beloved community. And my vision of beloved community, it's recognizing that, even amongst conflicts, we can resolve conflict and we stay away from each other, but reconciliation is an invitation to ongoing relationship with one another. Ongoing relationship to that which is inside of me that is in conflict with you, and really taking the steps to reconcile the inner conflict and the outer conflict. I do believe there's no one without the other, right? Every outer conflict is a recognition of inner conflict within ourselves.
Mm.
So, beloved community is a place of everything. Every expression is a place of belonging, compassion, love, yes, but it's also a place of conflict and reconciliation as well.
Yeah, we should uplift that. So reading, writing, arithmetic, reconciliation, you know,
Mm,
learn those skills, right? Like the
yeah,
skill of repair, right? Yeah.
bridging.
Now, you mentioned the word healing, and I wonder if you would share the backstory to kids, because I know that there's a journey that you were on that brought you to here.
Yeah, so in order for me to speak on kids, I have to mention before kids, who I was and how kids came to be based on the transformation of me. About 10, no, 7, 8 years before kids, I started a journey of pouring myself into the community. I started going to soup kitchens every week, serving, and I started mentorship, big brothers, big sisters. And I started just really giving in any way possible. I was giving from a space of pain. I had a functional, dysfunctional family upbringing. I think there's no dysfunctional without something's functional, right? And I think it's okay for everything to be dysfunctional and functional at the same time. But we had some pain in our household. We had, some attempts of suicide. I'll just say it. Just want to be authentic in this conversation. There were times where in my upbringing where we had police at the household, loud, domestic disturbance and things of that sort. So, with that, I carried a lot of pain inside. I was holding on to pain. I wasn't expressing that pain. And, pain, as I came to learn about it, was one of my first spiritual teachers. And it wasn't until I really understood my relationship with pain where I started to awaken to, oh, okay, my pain has a purpose. So back around 18, 19 years old, that purpose began pouring out into the community and giving any way I can. I facilitated service trips to Uganda, Africa, addressing HIV, AIDS. I was doing a lot of work at the local Boys and Girls Club. I was picking up trash off the street, doing anything and everything. I was addressing recidivism and doing a lot of work on reentry. It was just anything and everything. And there was a pivotal moment where I started like I was still suffering, right? I was serving, but there was still something innate inside me that was hurting. And that's where I had so many gurus. One of those gurus was a woman named Maria at the soup kitchen. She come week after week, have some beautiful, profound conversations with her daughter and just beautiful connections. And I felt like I was, even though I was giving her a plate of food, I was receiving more from that conversation than I was giving to her. And she was like, she looked at me once, she said, "Yeah, you really have to narrow your focus. You're doing anything and everything, right?" And I'm in Newark with what was then Mayor Booker doing a Newark night patrol and out and just doing anything I could. And she kind of hinted at it without saying it, saying, "You're running from yourself. You're pouring into that's a healthy outlet, but you're still not healing." And she said, "If you really want to transform, you got to transform yourself. And if you really want to focus on transforming the world, start with children." And children were always near and dear to my heart. Like I light up with children. Whether I'm mentoring or coaching basketball, the younger they are, the more open they're to just pure joy, the innocence in their eyes and in their hearts is just so loving. And so I took that advice and I started healing myself, and I started learning about cleaning up my diet, what I'm putting into my body because I was an emotional eater, right? I would eat out of emotion, and some of the foods I was eating were not good for my health and well-being. So cleaning up my diet, cleaning up my mind, those ruminating negative thoughts that still creep in there, right? But through mindfulness and practice of just observing and witnessing, I'm able to watch the garden of my mind and plant the seeds that I want inside that garden without that garden going wild and untamed. And finally, I started healing my heart. Simple, practical tools, the power of the breath, the power of sound to heal. And I remember my first few times meditating, it only took like 5, 10 minutes, but sitting with myself, I'm just like, wow, tearing up. And I started increasing my practice. 5 minutes became 20 minutes, 20 minutes became a half an hour. And before you know it, I was building myself up to go to what's called a Vipassana retreat. And so I was trying to sit for an hour just to make sure I'm ready for the retreat. But that hour sit was like, oh wow, I could see everything inside. And going to Vipassana showed me a deeper layer of healing that I didn't know was possible. I've had images, experiences, and people go through my mind. I'm like, oh, these are the things that are so deep in that subconscious into my inner being that I need to heal, that I need to feel. And once it's revealed, I can release it and just release. And it's not releasing the pain, it's changing my relationship with the pain. But all that to say, I was on this healing journey and I co-founded. So I had my soul brother who co-founded K.Y.D.S, and we're both on our healing journey. And we both went to the same university back in our late teenage years, early 20s. So we knew each other from campus, but we weren't like close. But 7, 8 years later, we started seeing each other on a regular basis at a soup kitchen. Again, soup kitchens. I was working at the food bank, and after work, I would go volunteer my time at a soup kitchen. He was working at a school-based program, and he would bring his youth to that same kitchen, and we recognized each other. It's like, "Oh, Rodney, I know you from campus. We played basketball against each other, this, that, and the third." It's like, "Yeah, hey, what's up?" We dabbed it up, and then we started having conversations about what's going on in the world, and we're both on that journey of healing from within. And what I found, and what we found, is that when you healed from the inside, the outside began to change. So I don't see challenges the same way. I don't see the same things that would have got that pain point, that pain body out of me the same way because I was healing from it. And I understood the pathway outside was the pathway inside. So the more I healed inside, it was easy for me to navigate the outside challenges. So we said, hey, I'm still mentoring youth, coaching basketball, and he said, "Hey, these systems. shout out to all the systems out there because I think there's a place for them. But the group homes and the social work settings that they weren't really changing the youth. They weren't transforming. And even they were causing more harm that I saw on my end because through HIPAA laws, I have to, when I'm mentoring a child, I mentor them for 3 months, 3 to 6 months. After I mentor, the mentor relationship completes. I have, by law and regulation, I cannot have any contact with that child for 2 years. And we know what happens in ACEs. We know abandonment and that cycle of abandonment that keeps resurfacing. So we said, hey, we need to build something that's more transformative. We have to show that these youth have the power within themselves to transform, to heal, to grow, to thrive, to awaken to their, as I say, to their divine state. We didn't talk about spirituality early on, but now it's open source and open and helping them awaken to the greatness within themselves. So all that to say, that was the birth of K.Y.D.S back in 2014. And we had an observation of the pain and the cycles of pain in our community. And through that observation, we had an obligation to create solutions. And we define solutions as accessing the inner wisdom of your heart. So we created solutions for the community, starting off with just community connections. We had an open mic that we started back in 2014, and that was just to get our name out in the community. I love poetry, so I figured, let's bring the community together. But it became its own platform, unique platform where individuals, they share, they release, they're hearing stories, they're sharing stories, and it's not about the art and the talent, but it's about the heart that is expressing itself in the open mic. So since 2014, we've hosted an open mic every month, and we not have not skipped a beat since then. And from there, we started our meditation sits in the community, and we always believe that inner peace shouldn't cost a thing, so we didn't want to put a dollar amount on there. So, free donations are welcome, but we want to make sure individuals, especially those who need it the most, have access to this healing. And we started meditation sits. We started our first Journey Summer program. This is one of our Journey Summer t-shirts. I have t-shirts for days within kids, but we started that back in 2015. That was a free summer camp for elementary and middle school youth. And lo and behold, we started growing our program. And back in 2017, that's when me and the other co-founder left our full-time jobs. We called it a leap of love, where we wanted to be in love with the work that we're doing each and every day. And we took that leap of love in 2017, and right off the bat, schools are reaching out to us. And the school-based program that he worked with in Asbury Park High School, Asbury Park School District, reached out to us because now that he left, they needed someone to facilitate the wellness initiative that they had built in his support. And they're like, hey, we have this whole wellness initiative. We need someone to facilitate this and bring it to life. And here we are, we have an organization. And it was a good tee up to us having our first full-time program in Asbury Park from 2017 to 2024. We had that school-based program height full-time. We had a mindful moment room in each building, working with educators, working with students, working with parents and community. And it was a powerful transformation because I realized, and Prentice mentions this, the more you transform others, you're also transforming yourself. It's a reciprocal relationship. When you're changing others, you're changing yourself. When you're healing others, you're healing yourself. And I never discounted that because as I'm working with youth, I'm like, wow, hearing their stories, I'm healing my stories. And I'm sharing my stories and it's helping them connect to their stories. And I'm like, oh, okay. This is a reciprocal relationship. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it with you. And we always believe that we are not healing anybody. We're giving you the tools for you to heal yourself, and that is empowerment. So, lo and behold, since 2017, we've had over 200 school partnerships throughout the state of New Jersey, all levels, K through 12, college, university, and really transforming over 40,000 youth and educators throughout the state.
Oh, tell me if are you passionate about the Zoom call? I love it. I love it. It's very infectious. And people listening and watching should be looking at the show notes to make a donation. Um, I want, for those who are listening, you're wearing a t-shirt. You just talked about your organization. The t-shirt is red. It's got beautiful florals and butterflies, and it says "Embody, Transform, Awaken." I think it's so interesting that you use the frame solutions, and I was trying to stay present to everything you were saying, and part of my brain was like, is there any problem that doesn't have a solution? And I'm thinking it should always be solution. Right. No, that's
Absolutely. The world would look very differently if we look within instead of without.
absolutely, absolutely. So thank you for sharing all of that. You mentioned ACEs, and so just anybody who's listening who might not be familiar with the acronym Adverse Childhood Experiences, sounds like you experienced a few.
Mhm.
And you went on a journey, and that journey was deeply healing, and you continue to do such important, purposeful work. But you're not everybody follows that path. And I
Mhm.
just wonder, I feel like people who are going to be listening are going to be educators and maybe some parents. Um, Having chosen the path that you chose, what might you want to say
Mhm.
to anybody who comes into contact with kids that might be going down another path? And what, how can we invite them into
Mhm.
the conversation of healing as an alternative?
Yeah. I mean, the prerequisite to healing, I believe, is feeling. And to invite us to feel again and to slow down and to connect back to yourself. My invitation to those, who are looking at that journey and looking at a mountain, right, of things that we're healing from. Because I'm at a point now where I'm like, oh, I'm looking at my parents and I'm like, oh,
Mm,
you've experienced this when you were a child, and I could see those characteristics inside of me. So I'm looking at generational healing as well, and like, oh, okay, I can see, oh, grandparents and great grandparents, and my mother's able to trace our family roots, at least on her side, back to like the states where we were, and like the slaves, and I was like, wow, okay, so there's a lot inside this body. But healing, even though it's not kumbaya, right? And I think it's a misunderstanding of what healing is. It's not kumbaya. It still feels.
mm,
And you realize I didn't say good or bad after. It just feels. And when you're able to feel the full spectrum of life, I'm like, wow, okay.
mm,
This is a life I would have missed out on if I didn't take the time to connect back to myself. I could walk out in the world, I can act like everything's okay. I can go about my work and, get a paycheck and come home, watch TV and enjoy some moments, but to really feel, right? That's the catalyst for healing.
mm,
And I'm so happy that I'm in partnership with someone now who's on the same level because we feel together.
mm,
And as you know, with the relationships, it's definitely a mirror to who you are, those things that you need to heal within yourself, and the things that need to be revealed. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's still there. Let's heal. It's like a fast track to the healing journey, and but it's so worth it.
mm,
It's so worth it. And, I've always believed that healing is not just for yourself. But when you heal, you're healing community.
mm,
When you heal, you're healing the world. Yes, it's not like changing the world. There's still things that are yucky right now and mucky right now. And those things need to be transformed, but they're not going to be transformed from a dysregulated space,
right.
right? If I'm dysregulated, trying to fix dysregulation, you're going to have more dysregulation.
Mm,
So, for me, it's about healing. And when I heal myself, I also heal seven generations prior. Resma talks about this. I'm healing a lot of gurus and sages talk about this too, but I'm also healing seven generations after me.
mm,
So this healing isn't just for me,
mm,
it's for the world. And I think there's a selfish component in there that's very much selfless. As you're catering and connecting to yourself, you're also connecting to everything around you. And we know if you know interconnectedness, we're not separate anywhere.
right. Right.
So that's my invitation to healing. And I do want to offer a reframe for a lot of our young people who may be listening, who've had some challenges in life. Because who I am now is not who I was 20, 30 years ago. Um, I had to overcome some things to get to where I am now. And so those moments of challenge, call it trauma, the big T, small t, whatever you want to call it, adverse experiences, are really, I've learned that it's a deeper layer of spirituality of really showing you who you're becoming.
Mm,
And I had a wonderful counselor ask me after my brother's passing a few years back, asked me, who are you now in the aftermath of everything that's happened? And that was the first time someone asked me that question in that moment. I was like, oh, wow. And she says, also take the opportunity to recreate who you want to be
mm,
as you're getting to know who you are now. And I'm like, oh, yes. Nonviolence is something I want to advocate for. Be love community is something I want to advocate for. I want individuals to understand the pathway for transformation starts with yourself. Awakening starts with yourself. So healing is a powerful, powerful ally on your journey of becoming who you're supposed to become. And no one is born bad. Bad things happen, right? But it's really, really showing you who you're destined to become in the aftermath of all that has happened to you or for you.
mm. Thank you for sharing that. As you were talking, I was reminded of something that I learned a couple of years ago, that there was a conversation, I don't know who was involved, but trying to figure out what we were going to name our species. And the
Mhm.
conversation was either Homo sapiens, which is thinking man, or Homo sentiens, humans as feeling people. And they went with Homo sapiens. And I'm thinking, like, maybe we could enter a new era where we become Homo sentiens and we
Mhm.
elevate that. Um, yeah. Anyways, that you triggered that thinking, that reflection.
Thank you for sharing that. Mhm.
Good, eh?
Yeah, yeah, I love it.
You can use it
I
because
think
it's
that's
not
important.
mine.
Yes.
You mentioned nonviolence, so let's talk about that. What does it mean to embody nonviolence as an educator and a leader, and how can we embody that in schools? How can we bring that to schools?
Thank you for lifting that up. And I have to do a quick shout out for Transformative Educational Leadership. I'm a facilitator in that space. I often say everyone who's a fellow is a facilitator too, because we're co-creating the space that we occupy and that we share in. Um, I say tell because transformative educational leadership is where I first was introduced into nonviolence as a way of being in leadership, right? Not just personally or just a philosophy, but a strong embodiment. And I learned nonviolence is a love-centered way of approaching the world. It's a love-centered way of thinking, doing, being, that really is not passive. And that's where like a lot of education around nonviolence and what it is that, needs to take place. It's not passive, it's very much active. And as you know, we've had several conversations because it's hard to articulate nonviolence in just one sitting, in just 2 hours, 3 hours. It's something that we have to continuously revisit in all ways. But um, it's a courageous way of being. And I've experienced nonviolence in the face of violence, right? I literally received the book of nonviolence around the same time my brother was shot and killed back in 2022. And it was a lifesaver. It was a lifesaver because to me, this is the opportunity we have right now. Nonviolence includes healing, courage, compassion, radical forgiveness, right? I had to sit with, knowing, 90% sure the person who did that to my brother, and also learning recently that the other person involved was a childhood friend of ours. And, and so I had to learn, okay, let me take myself out of my suffering and grief and put myself in their shoes. And then I began to understand something, right? I began to understand this core sentence that pain needs an outlet. And unfortunately, that time, that outlet was taking someone's life. But as Resma talks about, what you do to others, you're doing to yourself, right? It is all spiritual. Tradition shows us, it's impossible for me to hurt you without hurting me. And so who do I become in the face of violence? And nonviolence was just a beautiful, beautiful catalyst to me talking about what nonviolence truly is. Not this passive way of being, because courageously, I'm walking in the same spaces where that incident happened. Courageously, I'm walking in the same community where that individual who actually did this act, this tragic act to our family lives, and going past the different establishments, and there's just so many reminders, right? But it takes courage to show up in those settings. And um, all that to say, nonviolence is something we really should look at as a world, right? It has to be, as you know, in our politics, right? And even religious settings, educational settings. Please, educators, understand your words have an imprint on these youth, right? Denying a child a school meal is an act of violence, right? Telling a child that they're not good enough is an act of violence, right? And allowing children to walk into schools where they don't feel safe is an act of violence. So what is the antidote? What does nonviolence look like in school settings, right? Because if I'm not regulated, if I don't feel safe, if there's violence around me, I'm not learning, right? I'm in fight, flight, or freeze. I don't learn under stress. So nonviolence supports academic learning. SEL and mindfulness and restorative practices, all the things that are coming out nowadays, because I think they're all just pointing to the same thing. They support the academic learning, right? So we have to learn how to really tailor nonviolence in educational settings. I know we're on a journey, Tell, because it's not quite complete, but we're on a journey of establishing what beloved learning communities look like. Right? What does that sound like? What does that feel like in the walls? What does that feel like, at the front desk? I do believe you need security in schools, right? So it doesn't have to be all or none, but what does it look like when security guards and custodians and lunch staff, administration, educators are all practicing nonviolence?
Mm.
Right? Not the nonviolence where you put it on a whiteboard, chalkboard, and you explain what it is. It comes from your being. It's a fabric of who you are. It becomes how you speak to the kids. Because I had one child, I'm alluding to it earlier, with the good or bad. I had a child who graduated high school last year, and I've known him since elementary school. He looked at me dead in my eyes last year, about a couple of months before he graduated, and he said, Mr. Mike, I've been called bad my whole life. What do you think I'm going to be? And I'm like, wow. Where are the nonviolence in the school systems amongst the educators who tell that child that there's something great about you? There's something special about you. There's something unique about you. You have an intelligence, you have a genius that surpasses anything else, right? You have a place in this world, belonging, right? Not just in community, but in the world, right? You have a purpose in this world and it's contributing to everybody's purpose. My purpose might look different from yours, right? But all of us are collectively contributing to our collective purpose, which is to live in harmony,
Mm.
to live in balance, to experience joy, to experience conflict and reconcile from conflict, to continue to embrace one another. And I was like, wow, we missed so many opportunities to tell that child that you are great, right? And we have this philosophy as an organization, K.Y.D.S, where we have to reprimand children. We have to tell them that their behavior is not bad. You're not bad, but your behavior is bad. We may shame the behavior. We're not shaming the individual. But once we shame that behavior, we're building your inner wealth.
Mm.
We're telling that you are great, that you are good enough, that you belong here, right? And I love you anyway. Yeah, your behavior. we don't want that in this setting right now.
Mm.
But you belong here, and I love you, and I love you for being here. I'm gonna call you king. I'm gonna call you queen. I'm gonna call you your greatness. I'm gonna see the greatest version of yourself until you do too.
So, okay, so here you are preaching to the converted on everything you're talking about. I'm just like enamored by everything you're saying. Love the idea of people feeling the feels, healing, wholeness. But if you had a mic out to the people who don't understand SEL and think all of this is just a bunch of hoke, like, why is this important to education? What do you want people to understand? I know you've alluded to it, but like, what's what's the
Hmm.
what's the message?
Yeah, I mean, education far exceeds what curriculum and content tell us to do. In this day and age, I think I have to bring it to what's happening right now across the world. But um, for example, let me just give you an example before I answer that directly. Um, Around the same time this last presidential election was happening, I saw a student council election happening at the same time, right, for student council president. And I heard the students talking bad about each other, their campaign, saying, oh, she's not this, he's not that, and he's this and that. And just really like instead of campaigning with dignity and respect, we're trying to put the other person down. But as I looked at the national platform, I'm like, oh, we are showing them
Mm,
what they are becoming.
mm,
We are showing them that this idea that it's me versus you, it's this capitalism, market fair, it's this, I need more greed and that idea, we're showing them that as adults. So I have to look at myself and have healthy conversations because I'm a part of it too, right? We have to say that that's not okay on either side,
mm,
and as long as I believe that I'm on the right side, that is ultimately going to become the wrong side,
mm,
depending on how you're looking at it. But how do we search for common ground? How do we search for connection and understanding, seeking to understand over being understood? How do we seek not just win-win, but just scenarios where there is no winning and losing,
mm,
where we're just being, right? And so I would tell those individuals that education has to expand. If we're going to raise the next generation of these young minds, these learners, it has to expand beyond the curriculum, beyond the content to connection,
mm,
right? They're learning not just from what you say and do, they're learning from your embodiment, the language that's unspoken, your coherence, dysregulation, walking, your nervous system. They're learning from that space. There's a reason why I've had so many youth, and this is a great example of Johnny in classroom A is an angel, classroom B is an angel, classroom C every day, that's turn up time. There's always some conflict, getting sent to the office. Why is it happening at that time? Oh, this educator is dysregulated. And we know through Resma's work, when I'm dysregulated, I can trigger another nervous system. And that is important. This education that we're talking about has to expand.
mm,
Intelligence, IQ, we have EQ, we have collaborative intelligence, we have relational intelligence, and this is more important because artificial intelligence is taking over the world, right? And artificial intelligence is doing a lot of the computing that we're teaching in schools. So those ideas of us, and children don't need to be at a cash register anymore. They don't need to count change, right? So how are we preparing children to be fully human in this world of technology? How are we preparing them to feel in this world of non-feeling? I just want to numb it out. I just want to disassociate from what's happening right now. And I'm seeing it across the board, the educators who take the time to get to know those students, to make sure they're fed, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. Those are the students that excel
mm,
in their academics.
mm,
When children feel seen, when children feel heard and valued, and they feel like they matter in the classroom, That's what helps them excel. I'm seeing it across the board. I had been to some of the poorer school districts in New Jersey. I had been to some of the richer and wealthier suburban school districts in New Jersey that are also some of the wealthier zip codes throughout the nation. And the same thing, we have to teach these kids how to feel because I might go home to a community where I have a single parent. I don't have enough means to have a food on the table each and every night. That's emptiness, not just physically, but emotionally, right? I see it in the suburban schools where you have a big house, but it's an empty home. There's an emptiness inside,
Mm.
right? And our children are yearning for something more. I heard it from a few kids during the pandemic. They want to learn more about themselves. They want to learn more about their purpose, hope. I had a child come up to me said, "I want to learn more about spirituality." I'm like, "It's a junior high school." I'm like, "Wow, that's beautiful. That's profound."
Mhm.
Right? Because now the yearning of something deeper, something more meaningful.
Mhm.
So education becomes not just what happens in the school building. It's what happens in our nervous system that supports the growth of these children and extends beyond the school building. Right. And I think that's the message. I don't know if everyone's going to receive it, but I do believe the seeds becoming planted is one thing. We have to say the things now, and we're planting the seed, and it may not blossom this lifetime, but hopefully in future lifetimes that seed blossoms as it needs to.
Whoa, that landed I really got your message. I think I'm now hearing three solutions. Feel, heal, connect. Those are some threads that are coming up for me.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think is maybe a nice segue to the sound healing work you do.
I'll talk about
Um,
that.
Tell me a little bit about that. Like, educate me as if I knew nothing. Because I've had the privilege of sitting in a room, actually laying down on a mat with you doing sound healing. You were my first exposure to that, and I loved every nanosecond.
Yeah, thank you for that question because, when I first experienced sound, probably 12, 13 years ago now, it was powerful. It was visceral. It was in my body. And I'm like, wow, here I am laying down. And all this is happening in this internal world. Sound is playing in the background. And I first went to a crystal singing bowls session, and it really transformed my world because after that, I was going back weekly and even probably twice a week. And I was like, hey, it was around the same time we were building out kids. So kids was happening after our day job. So my day job, then kids were meeting, building, connecting. And then I said, hey, it's 7 o'clock. I got to go. I got that sound healing. But sound is, and you said it just now, Anita. You said you don't have much experience, but I think everyone has a lot of experience in sound because it's everywhere. It's universal, right? It's the sound of your child's voice when you first hear that cry or their voice coming out the womb. It's the sound of your beloved, your loved one saying, "I love you." It's the sound, even the sound. This is the power of sound. The sound of the former lovers and partners saying goodbye, for the last time. It's the sound of a ringtone, sound of that music that gets you moving in a very beautiful way. Sound is everywhere. It's universal. And I'm looking at more and more studies of sound and showing that, they're now studying sound in healthcare settings where there's a lot of noise, background noise, right? And if you've ever been in a hospital, you realize you hear the beeps, you hear the talking nurses, doctors, you hear the constant chatter on the loudspeaker. It's a lot of sound. And that does something to our nervous system. Our nervous system remembers sound. Sound affects our nervous system, affects our mood, it affects our brainwave states, it affects our entire being. And so I often tell people, think of it this way, you are a sound being, right? Sound is one of the few senses that we can not just receive, but we give as well. My voice is sound right now. And in a more loving space, it's going to sound like this. In a more, it's going to sound a little differently, but our voice is giving off sound. And so that's where I talk about the sound healing. That's the origin. Use your voice, right? Connect in meditation, understand the sounds that are dissonance for you, or the sounds that are creating more resonance for you? Because sound is connected to trauma, it's connected to pain, it's connected to the parts of our body that need healing. It's everywhere. So sound is an energy, and that energy is a vibration. And as I'm playing, I work a lot with crystal singing bowls. Each crystal singing bowl has a different musical note and many different frequencies in that note. Um, I often, I give a little disclaimer as I mentioned this because it's everywhere, but with this idea of energy points, our body has energy points. And each bowl is connected to an energy point, right? In Eastern philosophy, they call it the chakras or energy points. You can also connect each energy point back to organs and glands in the body. And what sound does is sound makes its way, penetrates through not just our ears, but our entire being, right? And it's a vibration that your body is receiving. And it could be a vibration of sound crystal singing bowls. It could be a vibration of being in nature, hearing the birds, hearing the natural weather and elements. But that's creating a level of entrainment. And entrainment is when the resonance of your environment becomes the resonance of yourself. And so during a sound practice, we are becoming entrained with the sound. Just like if I'm listening to a playlist, my favorite playlist, that playlist is entraining me. And then that music, right, creates some type of inspiration for movement in my body. That's where music comes in. Music is very powerful, but the music therapy and sound therapy are very different. But sound is, I think, is probably some of the most important work of the world right now because sound is everywhere, right? Sound is being used as a weapon. It's used as a healing modality, and it's a sound has a way of bringing you to an elevated state of consciousness where you go beyond the analytical mind and you go to a zero space, the no mind. We're able just to be. And my sound instructor said, in that space, that zero space, that's where true healing takes place. Because you don't need to do anything. You don't need to think your way into healing. You just need to allow and just to be.
So those who are listening to the resonant voice that you have share that we all have capacity to for sound. And even those who don't have sound might feel vibrations, right? So we still
Mhm.
feel sound. I'll point everyone to your website because I know your website also has some of your, do you call it your soundscapes, or what would you refer to it as?
Soundtracks or
Soundtracks.
sound, yeah, sound bowls,
All right.
soundscapes too.
Good. Okay, so that's in the show notes. Do if you're like, what's this bowl, crystal bowl stuff? You have to listen to believe it. It is extraordinary. It is
It's powerful.
extraordinary. Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, I have two questions left before we
I
say
mentioned
goodbye.
one more thing
Yeah.
regarding sound. I am so sorry because you mentioned it, but I've been in a class for the deaf, and they were able to feel the sound, like you mentioned, right? And it's just that's why it's a vibratory experience. Sound is one of the few senses that you have access to on a physical level. Light might be beyond a person's consciousness of grasping and feeling, but sound is accessible to everybody. And if you ever watch a movie and try to watch a movie on mute, you realize how important that soundtrack is in the background, in every genre of movies.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just want to lift up those two things.
Well, and it gives me the thought that now I understand sound is being used experimentally to cure diseases like cancer, which is amazing,
Amazing.
right?
I've actually played in a lot of healthcare settings too, and MS communities, and it's powerful. I'm glad they're welcoming that in to the space because it's a powerful, powerful. Ultrasound is sound, right? That's a sound, yeah, modality that they use in medical, but it's, sound is being used everywhere, everywhere. Hmm.
I realized I have two questions, and then I guess I want to slip in a third. But before I do that, let me just ask, since this is a podcast devoted to empathy and empathy in education, I wonder if you could speak to what you've learned about the power of empathy in all the work that you've done, whether it's your own personal healing, whether it's through your nonprofit, whether it's through all the healing, every like what, yeah, what role does
Yeah.
empathy play in leadership and education for you?
Yeah, empathy, the power of feeling and connection is probably a fundamental resource needed in education nowadays. Because if I cannot feel, if I cannot feel in the classroom, in the school, you know, there's no connection. If I cannot empathize, and here's why I really want to introduce, you know, another way of looking at empathy is if I cannot empathize with someone, they may be going through a challenging time, an adverse time in their life. I don't need to experience the same thing to empathize with that individual. Dr. Cornell West talks about this. He's talks about the idea of using your imagination, right, and the lens of putting yourself in that person's shoes and just beginning. I'm not going to feel the entirety of what they're experiencing, but at least I can feel something.
Mm,
And I could start to take myself out of myself, put myself in another person's body. What might this person be experiencing
mm,
from their lens, from their bodies, and what they're enduring right now?
mm,
Um, that's a powerful, powerful tool. Empathy is a tool that I've known that has to start with me. Like the degree and the depth of my feeling, my ability to feel within myself is the degree and depth I'm able to feel for another person. And as long as I can feel with another person, I was like, oh wow.
mm,
It's like I could almost, and it's a deeper layer of practice, and you know this very well. It's a deeper layer of practice that extends yourself to another person. And with empathy, I often tell people it's because I think a lot of people struggle with. I know we should be far advanced from sympathy versus empathy, but a lot of people still struggle with that. You know, saying I feel sorry for you, that is sympathy, right? But empathy says, hey, knock on the door. I'm going to feel sorry with you,
mm,
right? I'm going to feel what you're feeling. I'm here with you. And I think empathy is such a powerful tool for deep, deep connection.
mm,
And like I said earlier, in this age of technology, empathy is the antidote. It creates connection, it creates feeling, and I'm able to sit with my students and learn from the space that they are in. Um, One other thing I'll say about empathy is it's not a one-way street, right? A lot of people and talking about empathy, fatigue, and you know, and I'm just a deficit. I just don't have any more to give. Um, we have to resource ourselves
mm,
because even though there's a lot of people who are feeling a lot of different things across the world, when I'm in a strong space of feeling and regulated space, I'm able to hold space with another and hopefully influence their well-being from our well-being,
mm,
if that makes sense. But that's just another layer of empathy that I've found because I've had a lot of friends who are empaths and they're just like, oh, I can't go. I feel too much. I'm like, oh, we have to feel more. So I dig my well a little bit deeper so I can feel more, right? And then I can hold more for another individual. And I know I might be, you know, crossing lines of empathy and compassion, but empathy fundamental and just connection and feeling.
And I think when I was listening to you talk about how much empathy you extended to the young man or young men that were um, that hurt your family, hurt your brother.
Mhm.
Um, I think about who you were to do that and what you needed to be that. like how when you people need to be resourced, like you had done some inner work that made it possible for you. And I think about what a role model you must be to young kids, that it is possible, and that you're not trying to be trite. This is big, deep work. And as much as you were saying, when somebody wounds somebody, it comes back. I also think about I don't want to put words in the mouth, and assume that there's forgiveness there, but you were perspective taking. Those were your words that you described earlier. Like that's big of you. That's coming from a place of wholeness.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. I do want to lift up one thing that was mentioned to me, and it's not to lift me up or give me a ego boost, but it also invites me to understand no matter where you are, what you're going through, someone is watching. And I had a lot of youth, as I mentioned, maybe a few weeks ago, who were watching Mr. Mike during that time because there was other violence taking place, and there's different reactions to that violence. But I had an individual walk up to me in the community, this warmed my heart, and he said, he just came up, put his hand on his heart, man, said, "Salute to you," because I haven't seen anybody walk through that space with the grace that you did. And he also mentioned, I'm not saying grace like everything was kumbaya internally, but your ability to have a strong level of self-restraint to say, no, I'm not going to perpetuate violence. I'm not going to look for retaliation of any sort, right? Just even me thinking these things. And I'm not going to negate that they didn't come up. I'm not negating that there was turmoil inside of me that I was thinking like, oh my gosh, you're here walking, you're able to walk. I don't want to get too personal, but like you're able to be with your family when my brother's not. Those things were going through my mind. You're able to go to your son's graduation. My brother wasn't. Both kids graduated the same year. All right, those things went through my mind, right? But they went through my mind. At the end of the day, I have to live with this. I have to live with this. I have to reckon with what's inside of me, right? Because I can let it eat away at me. I can let it fester and I have negative ruminating thoughts. And before you know it, I'm probably going to be taking that out because we know there's always going to be a situation that shows you the things that you still need to hear. And it's the things that are hidden that need to be revealed. And so yeah, the destination that I will arrive at is forgiveness. There's an empathy and an understanding of what happened. And I come back to that pain and it's this epidemic of pain that we're holding, right? And sometimes it's a pain of inside the family, household, sometimes it's systemic pain, sometimes it's generational pain, but man, if I can treat everyone like that 10-year-old child who was crying in front of me and embrace them for the pain that they're enduring, why can't I do that with adults throughout the world? Why can't I see everyone as an unhealed child? There's inner child wounds because I'm on the work of healing that inner child and the shadows and looking at myself on the deeper layers. And I'm not saying everything is healed and kumbaya. I'm saying I have a strong enough intention to sit with that and to welcome that into my life. So on a spiritual plane, I welcome these experiences show me the things that they need to be healed inside of me. And empathy. The spirit says, "Hey, I need you to feel a little bit more. So let's feel some more with these experiences in your life." But yeah, I think, and knowing pain, especially in a lot of communities in general, because I've seen it amongst my youth hundreds of times where it's like, oh, you got into a little fist fight with so and so, but that real pain is coming from your father who was never in your household. And when we get to that level of like inquiry, and you say, yeah, you break down, my father was never around, had nothing to do with that fight I just got into. So I stopped personalizing that narrative of what happened to my brother, and what happened to our family, and looked at it in the innocence of a child. Like I started this interview with the innocence of that child. What did that child? No child is good or bad. What has that child been through, gone through, where you see an adult now who is maybe perpetuating violence, or living in a violent state, and to sue that individual as if they're still that 10-year-old child.
Mm. I admire you so much, and you were put on this earth to do that work. And I wish your organization scale and success, untold scale and success. Um, could you share for a moment a little bit about your brother?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I have to say this because I mentioned this a few weeks ago. It was probably one of the most transformative experiences in my life. And I remember my brother in his glory. Like my brother, he had a tougher childhood where a lot of, let's talk about education. He wasn't understood in educational settings. He couldn't sit still in the classroom. He labeled, behavioral, put in self-contained classrooms when all he does, he learns in his body. And but he's had a lifetime of being misunderstood, got involved in streets, gangs. And when he had a lot of interactions with that in and out of prison, but he had his last prison stint, and it was a different awareness that was growing inside of him. And I think the art influence from afar, mine of my healing journey and what I was doing, um, when we connected while he was away, we just started having deeper conversations. We talked about his intentions coming home. He expressed that he wanted to just be with his family. He wanted to reconnect with family and also be a better father to his children. He has two, my niece and nephew, and and also he wanted to do something positive with his life purpose. He found purpose in movement and fitness. So he wanted to support others on their fitness journey. I say that because when my brother came home from prison in 2020, wow, for a year and a half, when he was inside the family household, it was like we were born again, reborn again. Our whole family. Like you couldn't make this up. This whole journey, like the conversations that we had were both in our childhood homes. I moved home on purpose to support the family. Yeah, I'm saying that because those who knew me said I would never move. I like my comfort, but here I am moving home just to be a support to the family, and we're all in our childhood household healing and having conversations and witnessing my brother's transformation. Yeah, he was healing a lot of pain, the traumas of being in prison and even experiences prior to prison, and he was healing and breaking through. And that's why I want people to remember of his life and his determination because everything he intended to do when he came home from prison, he did. From family, becoming a father to both of his kids, he became a personal trainer and mentor to even some kids that we didn't even know we were both mentoring. I'm mentoring them in the school, he's mentoring them in the gym, and they're looking up to both of us. And I was like, wow, this is powerful. And he even started his own fashion line. My brother was very much into fashion, like very much. And that gene missed me, but he was very much into fashion and he started his whole fashion line and he wanted to make it a positive movement. So Plugged In, which had a drug reference prior, became more of a positive, plugged into something powerful and positive that's transforming your life. So Plugged In was his clothing line that he started. And so all these things we're able to witness. So that's why I say like my brother, he didn't die like in this space of like despair. He he first he was surrounded by family. And I think even though that can be like seeing that could be very traumatic, but like knowing that he was surrounded by love, right? And knowing that like he was coming into fruition of who he was becoming. And I have to say this too, his impact of his passing was transformed not just for our family, but the entire community because he was well known, because they saw the positive influence he was having. A lot of people following him and seeing him in the gym, being inspired by his fitness and his determination and commitment to fitness. Um, But there were so many people who reached out to me countless times after his passing, people who are unknown, like people like one person from New York said, "Yeah, I was locked up with your brother. I didn't know anyone in the area, but he showed me love. It made me feel like I belonged. It helped transform my awareness and who I became while in prison." Right? There's another person who was involved with him back and forth in the streets, but he was in a wheelchair. He said, "Your brother inspired me to walk again." Right? There was a person who came to the viewing and he's wearing one of my brother's shirts, right? One of the plugged in shirts. And he tells me, "I haven't been able to fit this shirt until today. Your brother told me I'm not getting you, I'm not getting you another size. You're gonna fit this shirt." That was he was that type of motivator. But he said this is the first day I've been able to fit this shirt. And so many stories, so many like people reaching out. Like he was driving cab for a little bit when he first came home, and so many people coming up saying, "Yeah, brother gave me free rides to make sure I got to work and got to work on time, because I didn't have money to pay for transportation to work, and your brother looked out for me." All right. So there's like so many of these stories that continue to unravel. I'm literally receiving a DoorDash at my community center for just snacks for our kids. And this guy is looking at me like, "You look like someone I know." It's like, "Oh my gosh, you're Marcus's pro's brother." And he's like, "Man, I just got shivers in my spine. I miss that guy." Like, and so like so many of these stories continue to unravel. And one of the best stories I love is without Marcus, right? I don't meet my fiance. Right? And so it's like it's all a part of it. It's all part of this spiritual experience that continues to unfold. And yes, trauma, grief, yes, it's there, but it's not going to take over. It's not a life sentence. And who I am choosing to become after is a person principled in nonviolence, choosing love and compassion, right? Using the story of my brother to transform others who are on the same path and really healing communities and generations. Thank you for that question.
Thank you for indulging such a fulsome response, your brother. I'm so happy that fashion line, physical co like I just love knowing him through that lens. And I feel like people who are watching and listening have also had their hearts broken open just now, thinking about him, and may be inspired by that story. So thank you for sharing that. And as I was listening to you again, fully present, like one part of my brain activated, I was reminded of one of my favorite books of all time is Nelson Mandela's A Long Walk to Freedom. Have you ever read it?
I believe I have, but I'm going to say no because it's not fully my memory, but the individual itself. Yeah.
So it's like 1,000 pages, and I remember falling in love with it. First of all, you have to be a little bit of a political junkie to love it because he talks a lot about politics, but I mean, like just talking about living with purpose. By the time I got to the last 100 pages, I made the decision to read slowly, more slowly, so that I could read the book longer. I just needed to savor the book. It was that extraordinary. And that's how I feel about this conversation. We're at the last question, and I'm like, okay, but like, how can we just keep going? So thank you. And simultaneously, and just so you know, Michael, my daughter's having a sleepover for her birthday, and I have to get balloons, and I'm like, I have to be out of here 17 minutes ago, but I'm like, I'm just so here with you, you know what I mean? Like,
Appreciate you.
I always end with this question, and I never know what I'm gonna get. And the question is, can you share a time in your life when you were on the receiving end of empathy and what that meant for you?
Whew. Wow. Just because we're in the state of education, right? And I had a high school teacher. Her name was Mrs. Burkett. Mrs. Burkett, saw a young man who was angry, and then that showed up not in ways that were extremely destructive, but nonchalant, not caring, breaking some rules, going to private school where, there's a rule of how you're supposed to dress. So, I'm gonna stretch the rules with my, I guess this part came from my brother, just like the different style that I would put on my uniform. But Mrs. Burkett, along with being hard on me and expecting me to be at a certain level during the times where she gave me detention, right? She took the time to get to know me, to build that bridge of empathy with me. And that bridge has remained strong and steady since 2006. Wow. Where this individual has showed up in my life in all ways and has took the time to get to know me and empathize with my story. Because I started sharing stories of what I was growing through during my upbringing and, things that were happening in the household. And she started coming to my sporting events, football, basketball, supporting me in ways she didn't know these sports. Um, but she came to support me. And that bridge of empathy remained strong and steady throughout my entire life after, where, coming to sporting events, being at my graduation, obviously, coming to my college graduation, my second college graduation, her daughter, who was younger than me, I consider my little sister, being at her college graduations, and all the way up until a few years back, maybe 5, 6 years back, at her birthday party, a surprise birthday party that they had for Mrs. Burkett. And she told me for the first time that, the reason why she was so strong and connected to me and my life stories because she never knew family outside of just being in family with those around her. She grew up in foster home, and so she always saw everyone as family. And that's why she was able to extend herself to me. And lo and behold, she was at my brother's passing. She came to the funeral. She came and continue to support me from afar. So that is definitely a story I love to tell, and she took the time to empathize with what I was going through. That's why the anger was showing up. That's why I'm clowning people in the classroom, being a classroom clown and, breaking the rules. And she saw a little something in me and she started investing her energy in me. And that empathy bridge has been strong ever since.
I love Mrs. Burkett and all the Mrs. Burkett types in the world. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, these I call them the empathy superheroes, educators and nurses and healers. And thank you for that story.
Mhm.
She understood no child is bad. That is seared in my head
Mhm.
through this conversation. Mychal, thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. So the invitation for those who've been watching and listening, turn up the volume of empathy in your life. You never know how you're going to touch someone, and everybody who's been touched by empathy doesn't forget it. So it's just this human superpower. Let's uplift it, right? Mhm.
So strong. It's so strong.
Well, with that, I want
Thank
to
you.
thank you and thank everybody who's been watching and listening. And we'll see you next week at Purposeful Empathy.
Yeah. Thank you for holding this space, Anita. I appreciate you.
If you know someone who would benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Post the link to your socials and hit the subscribe button now. The world needs more empathy, and you have an important role to play.